and we quadrupled the profits in that 2.5 year period, because obviously. Hey everybody, I thought I'd do a short video today just about strategy. What is strategy? It's talked about a lot in business, and I've held roles before of Chief Strategic Officer alongside MD roles and stuff like that, but it's a very, very woolly word that can be thrown around and bandied around for a set of undefinable things in a business. If you don't have a strategy, you won't have a business in the long term. So I find it really intriguing, and particularly when I'm asked to go and speak, or even when I was a troubleshooter, is when I've been in and asked, what's the strategy? I think everybody looks at me like I'm saying some kind of technical, woolly corporate jargon, which is far from the case. So what is strategy? It's a plan of action designed to achieve a long-term aim or objective. But I think so many people, when they go to work, if they run a team, even manage a single person, even if you don't, particularly if you're a business owner, this is a critical one, is no one stops to work out what their strategy is. They might have an idea subconsciously, but if you're a plumber, if you're an electrician, if you're a teacher, if you're an entrepreneur, if you don't have a strategy, how do you know what you're doing on a day-to-day basis? A strategy has been the critical thing, the thing that goes first with you. I'm generally an ideas guy, but ideas still have to have strategies. So you can have the overall strategy for a business, which can be very highfalutin, a big statement. But to me, a strategy is a set of guiding principles that gives a person, a business, or a management team the autonomy to work within that framework. So you have a strategy, then you have big things that are mission, vision, values, or core objectives. But if we just take strategy, because I think strategy is the most important part, everything else is the olive branches that come off the strategy. But if you have the strategy correct and everybody understands it, it means that when everyone turns up at work, they already know the set of guiding principles for which they're going to make their decisions. So an example of one of the strategies that I had when I ran the Rico Arena for about 2.5 years, Compass Group were appointed by Coventry City Council to run the entire commercial and catering operation. And there'd been a few managers before me, some false starts. It was a supportive business in terms of the council and the handful of staff they had on site, but it's quite a big job in terms of managing that team. So they'd lost Coventry City Football Club, and when I came in, there was obviously some resistance, there was some pushback, because a lot of people had been there for a long time since the ground had opened, and I was very keen to understand what the strategy was. And fundamentally, if you asked each person, they had a different version of the truth. And I think it's many years ago now, but I'd say way back when, if you asked certainly the kind of senior management team what our strategy was, it was very clear. There was an overarching strategy. We took the turnover from single-digit millions into double-digit millions, and we quadrupled the profits in that 2.5 year period, because obviously selling space, which is what you're doing, is very, very profitable. So when you play that part of the strategy back to the overall piece, we want to be the best small exhibition stadium venue in the country. Off the back of that actually came objectives of certain levels of profitability, yield, both for the exhibition centre, the conference facilities and the hotel. But everything feeds in. So when everyone understands the headline strategy, actually what you have then is departments and heads of departments who fully believe in your strategy, your direction. Because good managers engage people. They don't say, this is the strategy and you're going to fucking do it.
Stand in that fucking corner. Stand over there, right?
Good managers say, this is my thought, but I'd like your thoughts, and collectively we're going to agree what the overall strategy is, because for us to get paid, for us to flourish, for us to do well, for people to get bonuses, we've all got to pull in the same direction, because the chance of success multiplies each time where everybody's pulling in the same direction. So I'm going to use a horrible example here, but in coronavirus, where you say that it's such a potent disease, it's because if one person gets it, they can give it to 3, and within 5 days 3 people have given it to another 3 each, so you can go from 3 people to just under 500 people in a matter of days and weeks. Same pandemic can be done in a workplace, with morale, with strategy, with vision, with autonomy, that if you get one person to believe and they can get 3 people to believe, 3 people each can get 3 people, and 3 people and 3 people and 3 people. So in that workforce at the Rico Arena, my 10 direct reports had to get the other 140 odd people to believe. And obviously some of that is of my doing, but a huge amount is of their doing. So you've got to get people with you on the journey, but having a strategy is where it all starts. And I'd encourage anyone who's self-employed, anyone who's a manager, anybody who's a leader, or anybody who isn't but aspires to be, is have a strategy. But I think allowing yourself that day, that hour, that afternoon, where you on your own, if it is you, or you with your peers, to work out what are we going to do. Because ultimately, the most important decisions in work, the most important decisions, our best decisions are the things that we say no to, not the things that we say yes to. And in order to say no to something, or even to say yes, you have to have a strategy. Even if it's a purchase order for £10 for a load of paper, that paper is required because that paper feeds the printer, which prints the invoice. That invoice means that the sale that's worth £50,000 is generated, which helps me achieve my overall objective. And I know it sounds silly to take it down to the minuscule idea of paper, but every decision has a consequence. Everybody that filters down when they're signing off something, be it a purchase order or a decision, makes that decision with the end goal in mind. And ultimately, that is what a strategy is. Bring you back to the definition of what a strategy is: a plan of action to achieve a long-term overall aim or objective. You started with it, and all the behaviours that came off the back of it came because of one strategy, one set of decisions or principles that guided every decision from there on in for the next weeks, months, and if you get it right, hopefully years, and that's when you create a culture. Another example I've got of when a strategy works was as I've taken on a more strategic role and we purchased Bright Bricks, which I'm the chairman of. They had something that was called a trail, where they put life-size animals or spacemen into a zoo, a shopping centre, a mall, and we'd place them as a trail map around a city, a venue, whatever it is, to get people to turn up, footfall. So that essentially came off the back of a strategy of taking these models that essentially are very expensive, that not many people are going to purchase, and giving them a purpose that delivers an outcome, both for us, revenue, and for the end user in bringing footfall. But actually what we needed to do was have something that was a more potent marketing tool, because we knew how amazing this idea was that we'd got this business model, because every person that we sold it to would get somewhere between 10 and 30% uplift in footfall. So although they pay us good money, the acquisition cost is low and the customer satisfaction is really high. But it was like, how do we get this out to more people, given that our core audience is mum and dad with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids between the age of 2 and 10. And in my role, to deliver the strategy. So for me, the strategy was, what can we do to get more people to understand what it is that we do that isn't just making models out of plastic bricks or Lego bricks. We then created what was called the IP program, which has been a baby of mine and I'm passionate about. So for me, the strategy then was to get the world's leading preschool and school brands that every person on the street knew what they were. Strategy for me in that sense was acquiring well-known IPs that deliver the overarching marketing story for us to be able to present what our business model was. So then we systematically approached all of the big boys, and by the end of it we'd secured Shimmer and Shine, Paw Patrol, which is one of the top 2 brands, preschool brands in the world, Peppa Pig, another one of the top brands, SpongeBob SquarePants, Peter Rabbit, Snowman and the Snow, and arguably smaller brands such as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Blaze and the Monster Machines, and numerous others. And what happened then is, as we started to secure those agreements with others, we created those trails, and one of the trails, the Paw Patrol, went to the Birmingham bid, which is essentially a trail around Birmingham city centre at Christmas. And somewhere between 100,000 and 150,000 people went to that trail. So come back to the strategy, because that's the important part, is that trail was successful because we had a great idea. We had brilliant models, but world-class models, that's what they are, made by great builders, a brilliant sales team selling it. But you can only get so far with those things because you need something that's going to put you in a different league. So going from clients that are amazing and they all pay you, so no one's more important than the other, but actually in a business like ours where scale is what you're trying to achieve, and again comes back to strategy, scale is achieved by getting mass numbers of people to grasp what you're doing. So by using the Paw Patrol, which anybody with a child below the age of 6 knows who that is or what that is in the UK, probably globally now, the idea of going to a free trail where your children can meet 20 characters from Paw Patrol, it's a no-brainer. But it comes back to the initial strategy, and why we were doing it was to acquire customers. And for us to acquire the customers, we had to give them the tool for them to acquire their own customers. So you have to walk through that journey to understand why that strategy and objective is important. So I thought that was a really powerful example where you can go from a company that makes models out of Lego to, within 15 months, creating trails across the world now with household name brands. And that all comes off the back of having a strategy and a single direction that a number of people are working in to help you facilitate that becoming a reality. It's a remarkable demonstration of when a strategy is effectively delivered. So hopefully that's a really useful piece of advice. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It stood me in good stead as someone that does it for a living. So that's it today for a kind of short video, but I think as someone who's held strategic roles and it at times can be perceived as very woolly, I think it's really important to talk about what a strategy actually is and what does it look like when it's executed properly.